Welcome to This Explainer. We are jumping right into a wildly relatable phenomenon today. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., just staring at the ceiling, and suddenly you feel this chaotic, overwhelming urge to completely reinvent literally everything about yourself? You know the feeling, right? It's that sudden rush where you decide that tomorrow, everything is going to be different. You're going to wake up at 5 a.m., drink some green juice, finally write that novel, and just become an entirely new person. It's a rush, it's intense, and honestly, we've all been there. But what is actually happening in our brains when this happens? Well, today, we're breaking down the hidden psychology behind wanting a completely new life overnight.
Seriously, I want you to think about the last time this hit you. This sudden, burning desire to instantly adopt a brand new set of habits, a completely fresh mindset, maybe even quit your job and jump into a totally new career, and essentially debut a brand new personality to the world. One minute, you're just sitting there kind of frustrated with your daily routine, and the very next moment, you are deeply convinced that you are ready to become someone entirely different. It feels incredibly motivating in the moment, doesn't it? It feels like you've finally cracked the code to your own potential.
Okay, let's dive into this because this is where the psychology gets really interesting. We tend to look at that late night burst of energy and think, wow, this is pure, simple motivation. But psychological research points to something else entirely. The urge for an instant new life usually isn't about motivation at all. Instead, it's actually deeply connected to emotional overload and identity frustration. It's a symptom of your mind's desperate need for an escape. You aren't necessarily inspired. You are simply overwhelmed. So let's look at the first major psychological illusion driving this feeling. Illusion 1, the clean slate, in this concept of exhaustion with your current identity. What's actually happening here is a profound exhaustion with your current identity. It's not just that people dislike their external situation, their job, their messy apartment, their bank account. It's so much deeper than that. People actually become emotionally exhausted by the version of themselves that is connected to that situation. Your current routines, your daily habits, your recent mistakes, and your standard emotional patterns, they just start feeling physically and mentally heavy. Now, what's really fascinating here is this concept of emotional rebirth. When the weight of your current identity becomes too heavy, your brain actively starts craving a completely new self as a form of psychological relief. It wants an escape hatch. It's wild because the brain isn't necessarily looking for self-improvement. It's hunting for immediate relief from the heavy burden of being you right now. It just wants to hit the reset button and experience an emotional rebirth.
Because the brain is seeking this relief, we start to deeply romanticize fresh starts. The brain loves the idea of starting over because a new beginning feels psychologically clean. We conjure up this image of a new version of ourselves that is magically free from past mistakes, no longer chained to our old identity, and certainly not carrying all of our current emotional baggage. So we start imagining that simply changing our environment, getting a new haircut, or completely rewriting our morning routine is going to instantly change how we feel on the inside.
But here is the hard truth of the matter. Unresolved patterns usually follow the person wherever they go. You can move to a new city, you can throw away all your old clothes, and you can totally change your career. But if those internal emotional patterns are unresolved, they are packing their bags and moving right alongside you. The fresh start is an illusion because changing the outside absolutely does not magically rewire the inside.
Which brings us to our second psychological illusion. Illusion 2, the trap of intensity and escaping emotional discomfort.
And this brilliantly illustrates the trap. This illusion happens when we experience huge, intense emotional moments, like a major failure, a really painful heartbreak, a moment of profound embarrassment, or just reaching a total boiling point of frustration. In the wake of these intense feelings, people suddenly feel hyper ready to change everything about their lives. We mistake that intense emotional pain for actual transformation. But psychology shows us that emotional intensity only creates a temporary urgency. It does not create permanent, sustainable change. Your mind feels completely different immediately after a heartbreak or failure. You feel like this new, hardened, super focused person. But actual behavioral change, that moves much, much slower than our feelings do. Now, when you really strip away that romantic idea of a fresh start, the raw psychology reveals something super simple. The desire for a completely new life is actually just a desire to escape. You don't necessarily want to build something new, you just want to leave something painful behind. These are the heavy burdens we're actually trying to run from. Deep pain, chronic stress, profound loneliness, the sting of failure, and the weight of regret.
When these feelings just become way too much to process, the brain looks for the nearest exit. That fantasy of the new you who wakes up at 5 a.m. and runs 10 miles a day, that is the exit door. It's just a beautifully disguised escape plan from your current discomfort.
You see, instead of sitting down and slowly processing these difficult emotions, the mind chooses to fantasize about becoming someone entirely different. Why? Because psychologically, escaping feels significantly easier than gradual healing. Fantasizing gives you a quick hit of dopamine. It feels good right away. Gradual healing, on the other hand, requires facing the pain, which is difficult, tedious, and doesn't offer any quick emotional payoff.
So, what does actual true transformation look like? Let's ground ourselves in the reality here. True transformation and my real change is incredibly ordinary.
If the overnight reinvention is basically a psychological illusion built on escaping discomfort, true transformation is actually the exact opposite of a sudden lightning bolt. Here are the actual steps of a real behavioral change. Step 1. Repetitive actions. It's doing the same small, honestly kind of boring things over and over again. Step 2. Slow progress. The kind of progress you can hardly even see from day to day. And step 3. Emotional discomfort. Because pushing through your old habits is really hard work. The brain absolutely hates this because it loves immediate results, which is exactly why people become so deeply frustrated when real change feels this ordinary and gradual. It just doesn't give us that massive emotional high we were craving at 2 a.m. So the absolutely crucial point is this. People fall into a continuous cycle where they are simply chasing the emotional excitement of change. They love the high of planning the new life, buying the shiny new running shoes, writing out the perfect new schedule. But because they underestimate just how long and ordinary real change actually is, they get frustrated and abandon the process way before actual change has a chance to happen. They don't stay long enough for the roots to take hold. But bringing these patterns out into the light is incredibly powerful. Understanding this hidden psychology fundamentally changes how you see yourself. When you finally know that the urge to radically reinvent yourself is often just your brain's way of asking for a break from emotional exhaustion, you can actually stop feeling guilty for abandoning your grand 2 a.m. plans. You can start having way more compassion for yourself, and you can focus on making small, real, sustainable changes instead of just chasing a fantasy escape. I want to leave you with a thought to carry with you after this explainer wraps up. The next time you find yourself awake late at night, feeling that sudden, intense urge to completely reinvent yourself by tomorrow morning, pause for a second. Ask yourself, are you truly inspired to grow, or what are you really trying to escape? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this helps you navigate your own mind just a little bit more clearly.